everyone. How are you doing today? Today we are on our second of our initial FRQ beginning prep days, and I'll be telling you more about what our plans are for next week. But let's go ahead and get started with what we are doing today. And we will be looking at some of the details today of our upcoming exams. Some of this will be a repeat for some of y'all who've been faithfully here every day. And for others of you, it may be new, but you know, repeats don't hurt at all. All that does is reduce our stress and anxiety about things we haven't experienced for the first time. And no one has experienced this modified exam in any subject ever yet. So once again, my name is Ann Lindsley. If we haven't memorized that yet, I'm at Bel Air High School in Houston, Texas, and it's a quite warm day down here. So hopefully it's nice where you are. So I'm going to go over some of this in more detail, but you've seen this slide now for what, the last 4 or 5 weeks almost. But once again, May 12th is the day. Makeup is June 1st, but we'll talk about how you get to makeup. Any questions you have regarding the exam that I'm not covering here? If you want to see some things more in print, you don't want to keep rewinding the YouTube video, all your answers to so much is at apcoronavirusupdates.collegeboard.org//students. And in fact, if you go to the AP College Board site, the very first top of the line says updates for students or for teachers. And those coronavirus updates are all applying to everything that's going on right now. So I want to start with, I want to make a comment first. We do have the Slido page open, but we have it such that for right now, it won't be operating until pretty much toward the last 15 minutes. That way we can get to questions that I might not have covered or need to rephrase for you if you didn't get it the first time. Yesterday, we were getting tons of the same question, and I was talking about it right at that time. So just trying to make sure that I've covered it and you've heard that part. And then if there's still a question, we'll post that and then we'll answer those at the end. So there's the Slido room number for you if you want to write that down somewhere. So at the end yesterday, after Dr. Dixon was here, I gave you some questions to practice, to think about. In particular, I wanted you also to work with a graph and in our chart. And in this particular question, you're using these skill words, explain and describe, and explain again and explain again. And I pointed out to you that there's some elements here of multiple parts in the one particular question. So pull out your answers. I know everyone wrote this down, at least wrote it down up here. So pull out your answers and let's see if you got to thinking the right way that we want you to think about this. So in recent years, the number of refugees has been increasing. However, most refugees are coming from just a few countries. And so in your chart, 5 of them are listed and the quantities of these. So, and this is 2012 data, so I'm fully aware that this data has changed since 2012, but this is the data that we're working with. All right, so explain the difference between an IDP, internally displaced person, and a refugee. So, anybody, what did you put down? Anybody? All right, well, hopefully you put down that an IDP is somebody who is displaced from their home, but not outside of their country. Somebody who is an IDP remains in their country. So for something happened in their area, it could have been civil war in their area, it could have been ethnic or religious persecution, it could have been a natural disaster, massive flooding, massive famine, a hurricane. We've had that several times now in the United States. And so you have this mass migration, sometimes pushed to a degree, of where people have to be relocated because it's no longer going to be possible for them to remain in that location. What is the difference between that and a refugee? So in answering this question, you have to address what is an IDP and you have to address what a refugee is. You can't just say one or the other. Remember, Dr. Dixon said yesterday about closing the answer, and that's what you have to be careful with. A refugee is someone who is pushed out of their own country. They're pushed across an international boundary for whatever reason. It could be all the same things I already listed. Physical factors, economic factors, political factors, cultural factors, but try to be specific. Just don't say, as I just said, political factors. Say a civil war. A refugee is somebody who was pushed out of their country by a civil war or by ethnic conflict, including religious persecution, or by a natural disaster. Okay. You want to be as specific as possible. You don't necessarily have to name one, but if you're capable of doing that, please go ahead. And, looking at that chart could have given you some hints as to being able to name some. Okay. All right. So in the next question, you're asked to describe one political, one social, and one environmental reason why refugees flee their country of origin. Okay. So what would be one political reason? It could have been the same one that if you made lots of reference up here in the part A, it could be the same one. What is a political reason why somebody would have fled their country? And I want to point something else out for everyone who's carefully paying attention. Notice in part A, it was asked, what is the difference between an IDP and a refugee? And then I come here to part B, and I have these parts, but it says why refugees flee their country of origin. Is not that the answer to this? Be really careful, y'all, in your reading. Very, very careful. Make sure you've also looked at this prompt, because there's the answer to part A right there. All right. So what would be a political reason? Maybe you put down fear of life during a conflict of war, political persecution, political imprisonment, forcibly evicted by the government or the military. Those also would apply. A social factor here, a social one is going to be anything that would involve the person for their beliefs and their standings. So religious persecution, ethnic or racial persecution, genocide would fall into here. Rights, civil rights, in the event of gender or sexuality preferences, if those are targeted issues, those would all fall under social. And then environmental, natural disaster, once again, pollution is a factor for creating refugees. Disease and epidemic diseases in certain countries, like, for example, Ebola. And then food insecurity or famine, which we've seen in Sudan as a factor, and that whole region right there, Central East Africa. All right, hopefully you got those down. At least you had them down in your mind. And so bingo, got your points. All right, in part C here, we are looking at select one of those countries and identify and explain one reason why refugees left their country. So all we're asking you is to identify one of those areas why they left. So you could have said Sudan was famine, drought and famine. You could have said Syria was civil war, even ethnic persecution and religious persecution in some cases. Iraq, religious persecution. Somalia, internal political conflict, as well as drought and famine. And then Afghanistan, 30 years of war practically, ethnic conflict, ethnic persecution in some cases, terrorist activities would come into there as well. So any one of those would have been a sufficient answer for that. And then in the last part, 2 economic impacts. Look at this. ESPN. Do we not have it in this whole question? Economic, political, social, environmental. So this is why some questions that had come up yesterday, why would I want to look at this in terms of ESPN? That's just a way of categorizing all the information. And in this particular question, we have economic, social, political, and environmental, ESPN, okay? So 2 economic impacts that a refugees can have on a receiving country. So several things could have been put into, could have been options here. And you could have looked at factors of increased competition for low wage jobs. You could have looked at challenges in need to financially support new refugees until they're able to make it on their own. Housing, cost of housing for refugees in areas to be able to meet their needs would have come into here as well. Competition with the local labor force would be another factor that would come into play. This is tied to economics. So anything you say here has to be associated with economics. So Once again, this entire question takes those kinds of charts that a lot of your teachers use and to help you classify concepts in this course. All right, so let's go on. And so much of what we're going to do today is looking at what this course is again, and then looking at what we have to do to be prepared for the exam. So once again, this has been an entire study in patterns and processes that shape our understanding of our surface, where we're using spatial concepts and landscape analysis to look at socioeconomic, or the way we socioeconomically have organized the planet and its environmental consequences. Okay, and when in keeping that in mind, we look at what this modified exam is going to have for us. So let's look at this in specific elements. So question one, this is a lot of you I know have your teachers who've been telling you this. All right, well, we do have an audience of students from many states that have not been able to have contact with their teachers. So some of you bear with me, confirm that your teacher also told you the right things, and more times the better, because then you are not stressed out about what's going to happen here. So once again, you're going to have 2 questions total. One question is 25 minutes. And then we'll have 5 minutes to submit it. Okay. That question is 55% of your exam, of the total exam. It's going to have more parts than the other question. Okay. It's longer. You're going to have 2 stimulus on the FRQ. Now, we had a question yesterday. What's a stimulus? A stimulus is a map or a graph, and I'll show you some in a minute. This is also going to be a multi-part response. So you have one question, you have part A, part B, part C. We don't know how many parts there are. We don't know. I can't tell you, I don't know. Okay. But it'll have more than one part, and it probably won't have 7, 8, or 9 parts, because that's too many to get done. So you can roughly guess somewhere between 1 and 7. Okay. I don't know how many parts it's going to have. It's going to be multi-part. So we just be prepared for that. Once again, this is going to ask you to describe, explain, and or compare. So those 3 verbs are the only ones that you have to master for this year. You are going to support those verbs, describe, explain, or compare, with all this content information you have developed over the last year, both with your excellent teachers, and then hopefully through watching some of the videos as review sessions as well. Okay. So using that information, applying it, however you are going to associate it with your answers. Okay. You are going to be analyzing geographic patterns and relationships as they apply to topics in units 1 through 5. Okay. Just units 1 through 5. But be careful, there's some of that economic stuff that carries over into units 1 through 5 that is in unit 7. Topics are all coming from unit 1 through 5. Okay. All right. Question 2 is all the same, except for that it is going to be 15 minutes, same 5 minutes to submit it. 45% of the exam comes from here. It's shorter. It has fewer parts because it's 10 minutes shorter. This will only be dealing with 1 stimulus, so not 2. So you're not comparing information in both, or talking about information from both pieces of visual stimulus. Same task, describe, explain, and compare, doing it the same way, applying geographic concepts or using models and theories to support your answer. And then the whole purpose, once again, is the same as it was in the first one, to analyze the geographic patterns that you find in units 1 through 5. Okay. All right. Now, describe, explain, and compare. We've seen these. Repetition is good. Practice is better. Practice makes perfect. So once again, also, Dr. Dixon went through these yesterday. Describe is tell me what is there. Tell me, what do you see? Give me an example if it applies. Tell me what you see, where you see it, how you see it. Explain. Explain what the reasons are. Explain the information. Explain the pattern. How do we see this in this situation? And I want to bring attention again to what Dr. Dixon said yesterday in terms of the concept of explain the degree. How it does or does it not explain the subject, okay? Not looking for numbers, but you have to look at both elements of that. Then compare. Compare is either looking at the similarities or looking at the differences between two or more items. But keep in mind, it has to be a parallel, so that you have to be looking at the same type of information. So if you're looking at population density, what's the population density in an inner city versus the population density in a suburban area? My parallel is the population density. Okay. All right. So I can't imagine that we don't have those down. Your teachers, I know, have been using those all year long. We've been talking about this since last year, that this course was going to be streamlined into actually 5, but we're just focusing on 3 for this modified exam. So all of this information, once again, is going to be based upon a visual stimuli. What is a stimuli? A stimuli is one of these: a map, a graph, a chart. What is going on in it? Remind you also, I mentioned yesterday, several days, read the titles, read the legend. Look and see, are there arrows on it? Where are they going? Don't spend forever on it, but you need to read those parts so that you know what is going on with the data that's being displayed for you. If you don't, it doesn't mean anything about the data, and it's going to be confusing to you. So you need to absolutely do those parts right there. So that's what a stimuli is, because we had some questions yesterday. What was a stimuli? And then ultimately you are looking at the stimuli in terms of the level of scale. Is this a global scale? Is this a national scale? Is it regional? Is it local? How local is it? Okay, that's what we have to look at in order to manage the stimuli. Then the whole course is designed around these 3 big ideas. What are the kind of patterns? What are the relationships? What is the spatial perspective that is causing change or influencing a cultural landscape, a global landscape of interaction? What are the environmental consequences? Okay, so these factors, as we took you through all of these, through all of the units in the previous video. So if this is the first time you've seen this, go back to the YouTube videos. You can look at these topics as they go through the entire course and see how the whole course is laid out according to these. Now, we don't probably teach it like this in our classrooms. I mean, I don't show my students the big ideas and say, look at this, because it becomes part of the routine of what we're doing. But in the end, we have to go back and look and see what were these patterns that we saw as we went through each of these units. What is the cause and effect relationship? And then last, how does this cause change? All right. And then these all build on themselves. And part of the way that it all builds through all the units is through the skills that we've asked and that we've taught you throughout the entire year. Not just looking at the vocabulary and the terms, but then looking at how things are spatially related to each other, how we build data to create that spatial relationship, how we look at it. That's what source analysis is about. How do we look at these patterns? How do we distinguish between these patterns? How do we compare them? And then scale analysis. Once again, remember, I keep saying that: global, national, regional, national. You have regional within national also. All right. So these have also been available for you as well in the different videos. We did all of those, covering all of that for you. So if you missed some of this, you want to know what it is, go back to those. Every slide we put in there was specifically designed to look at those. So once again, if it's new for you, you've got some time. I encourage you to do that. All right, so now it's time to get ready for the exam. And no, we are not doing the multiple choice and bubbling it in and sitting in a big, huge room, and where in our case at my school, it's absolutely freezing cold, and having to all do this at one time. We are doing it all at one time, but you're doing it from the convenience of your space in your place with your technological device. All right, so let's talk about what's going on. Maybe you've seen some of these slides if you've met with your teacher in the last couple days, because College Board actually provided us with this to help get you through this. So for some of you who didn't see it from your teacher or you don't have access, let's pay attention carefully with this. So 5 steps before we get to exam day, what do we want to make sure that we do? First of all, we're going to work on being organized. And I know that some students are just way over organized, and then there's some students that still can't find their notebook from this year. So let's make ourselves organized. First thing you're going to need to do is that you're going to make sure that you have access to your myap.collegeboard account. Okay. You should have been already getting emails. If you haven't received emails, then you need to go to myap.collegeboard.org and sign in. And if you don't know what you signed in with, then you can click on the forget and go to account settings, and it'll help you to confirm what your email address is or what your username is. Okay, then write that down, put it in the notes section of your cell phone so you know you won't lose it. All right, so the next thing is we need to check our technology requirements before we even get into some other parts here, because we are going to check our tech in just a second. But this is just our devices. Are you doing this on a laptop, a tablet, a smartphone? It's not the most ideal thing to try to type on your smartphone. So if you're using a smartphone, plan on writing things, and I'm going to give you some suggestions on how that's going to happen. But you need to make sure your browser is working off of Chrome, Firefox, Safari, or Edge. It should be one of these little icons. If you're not using these, you need to be using these. If you're on a Mac, a lot of times Safari is your default, but you can download Firefox or Chrome. And I'm willing to bet many of you use Chrome because you're Google schools. A lot of schools are Google schools, and so Chrome is a default. Anyway, check your internet, your cellular connection. If it's not great, maybe this is the time that you want to use your hotspot on your cell phone as a backup. Already have it going. All right. Don't plan on, I'll log into my hotspot real quick, and it's not real quick. So I know I can make that last 15 minutes if I have to remember in a hurry how to log into mine, but I'm old. Anyone who has assistive technology, because you have modifications and things like that, that's already been approved. You should have already been if it's on file with them, with College Board, you should have already received some kind of information. If not, reach out to College Board, send them an email. They're monitoring that all the time. And then you're also going to have something that you're going to type your responses on, unless you are handwriting them. So that's going to need to be done in Word or Docs or Notes, something that you can write on if you're going to type it. All right, if you're not going to type it, you need a piece of paper, lined paper, plenty of it. Okay. All right. The other thing that's real important that they've stressed to us is that you need to disable Grammarly. If you have this app on your computer, you need to disable it because it interferes with the AP exam program. Okay, so just disable it if it's on your computer. All right, so now we're going to check our tech and look at our options to make a decision here. And this is real crucial, and this is part of your planning, because you don't want to have to shift midstream, because that takes up precious time. And so here we have to make a decision. Am I going to copy and paste what I am typing on my computer and to copy and paste it into the exam window? Or am I going to write it, save it as a PDF or a .doc, and attach the document? I have to make that decision. It's been strongly encouraged to us to relay to you that you definitely want to plan on making a split screen. So that means you have both images on your screen, both the question and then what you are typing on your screen. Okay. And then that way you can either copy everything that you've just written and paste that into the exam window, or you can save what you've written, save it as a .doc, a PDF, and then click and drag that into your exam window. Now, hang on here a second, because I know there's some of you who don't want to type this because one finger typing just doesn't work. The other thing I want to encourage you to do in your preparation is that in your header that you're going to put on your piece of paper, or wherever, it's got to be on the top of your piece of paper, you want to put your AP ID and your initials. So those of you who've taken AP exams before, you always had a sticker you had to put on stuff, and it had all these numbers on it. That's your AP ID. And then on the back, you had to put your birth date and your initials. Well, this is that same idea. If you forget it, don't freak out. Everything's going to be linked anyway. So, but they've asked that you do that. All right. So, those of you who are not going to type, I can understand. I have to type everything. I can't read my handwriting. So, if you are going to write it, you're going to need to have some paper, okay? And that needs to be lined and it needs to be white. And you're going to need a dark pen or preferably a black or blue pen, okay? Because otherwise, you're going to have a problem here. It doesn't show up as well. You have a maximum number of 5 pages. So, you need to plan how long you're going to, how much room you're going to skip between your answer. All right. So, don't write one part and then skip a page and then write another part. You're going to run out of room. You should be able to do all this within two sheets of paper. All right. So if you are handwriting this, prepare ahead of time. Have your AP ID written on the top as well as your initials. Handwrite it. Okay. Make sure things are enumerated like I told you before. Handwrite it, and then you are going to have to take a photo of that with your cell phone or your tablet, and then you're going to have to upload that image to the exam site. All right, so you've got a couple of extra steps. This is why that 5-minute period is built in, so that you will have time to do that part. Okay, it's not as fast as if you were just transferring over from the document that you're looking at on your screen. Okay, but we want to have all that set up. Okay, so I'm going to talk about some other stuff. So, because I know everyone is anxious about the submission part, and so College Board has solved that for you too. Practice makes perfect. So, beginning May 4th, you get to practice submitting a response. That means you will be able to go to this address, and it's already posted on my AP site already, because this is where I took it off of. And you will be able to put in your 8-digit AP ID number and practice uploading whatever you'd like to upload, a picture, whatever, a piece of paper, anything. You can practice uploading it so you get how it's going to happen on the day of the exam. So that eliminates some stress. Okay, I think that's a great idea. Okay, all right, so make sure you don't forget that. All right, now the other thing is, this is the advice coming from a seasoned teacher. Okay, so some things that you need to do ahead of time. You need to plan your space ahead of time. You need to organize your materials. And now is perfect opportunity here. I told my students this yesterday, get a file folder and put each of your exams you're taking on the outside of that file folder. And then start putting things in that file folder that you think you might need. Okay. Specifically for that exam. In this case, geography. I have kids who'll take 5 or 6 AP exams. So they need a separate folder for every single course they're doing so that things don't get messed up. They don't have to sort through papers. Get it organized. Okay. Now, if you're only working off of your computer, do the same thing on your computer. All of the digital materials that you think you're going to use, make sure they're downloaded, put them in a folder on your computer so you can click AP Geo and open that up. And there's the document that you think you need to refer to. And it's real quick. Okay, you want to minimize the amount of time that you're sorting through something to support your answer that you think you need to do. I would find my power cable to my computer. If I'm loaning it to someone, I would make sure I steal it back from them. I would make sure that my computer remains charged over the next couple of weeks here. Keep it going, all right? Don't let it get down. Don't freak out. Make sure you know where that power cable is and keep checking your internet. Okay, and there'll be some more tips here in a minute. This is what you need to do ahead of time. That means starting this next week. Make sure you have enough comfortable space. Make sure you have enough light. Make sure you can figure out how to start warning the people in your house. Hey, I got this exam. It's a big deal. It's going to save you money. All right, you got to give me space and time. Okay, so what time is the exam? Well, the exam, once again, is being given by different time zones. And this has been published also for the last 5 weeks now. So depending upon what time zone you're in, this is going to be the time that you're going to have it. Okay, so I don't know what time zone all of y'all are in. My students are in one of these time zones, and my students will be taking it at 3 o'clock. So if you're in most of Texas, you're taking it at 3 o'clock. All right, so you need to remember what time you are taking each of your exams, okay, on May 12th. All right, step 5, you need your AP exam e-ticket. Now, these are going to be sent out to you 2 days before each exam. So our exam is on the 12th, so you should be getting this on the 10th. And you are going to get this e-ticket and you're going to print out a copy. If you can print it out, put it in that folder. You also are going to keep it accessible to you on your desktop so that you have it for that exam, because this is what you are going to need to use to access the exam. Now, don't share this ticket. Don't give it to anyone else. It is uniquely linked to you by this AP ID. That will invalidate it if it does, and you won't have an exam, and that person won't have an exam, and you won't be able to do anything else. If you find it that there's a power failure, the dogs are going crazy, the children, all the rest of the kids in the house won't help out, and you have to take a late exam, don't log into this. Okay, and don't lose this. You're going to need this if you take the makeup exam on June 1st. Okay, so as long as you don't enter into your e-ticket, you'll be able to take the June 1st makeup exam. Just don't lose this, okay? All right, so the other thing that College Board is also providing you with is this exam day checklist. And this is a handy almost 3-page document for you. And on this exam day checklist is a whole bunch of things listed for you that are check off boxes. You know, here you can see, when's the exam date? When is my check-in time? When is my start time? I'm checking in at least a half hour before my exam starts, okay? That way everything is arranged. There's no glitches, there's no problem. I'm stress-free and everything will work well. Okay. So then go ahead and go through, check these things off, and keep this in your folder. This is when our exam is and everything, but do notice the clock. You will have a clock that will appear with your exam, and it'll tell you how much time you have left to begin to submit your work, and then how much time you have left for submitting. So make sure you pay attention to that. All right, once again, the teacher in me, what do I tell my students? And my students have already seen this, so I know hopefully they listened. Have your area set up, that I already talked about. Get something to drink, get some water to drink. You're gonna be anxious, you're gonna get thirsty. And that also means go to the bathroom before that half hour has started. Put your cell phone on the silent, make sure your split screen is set up. Tell everyone you have to have some quiet time, and tell them to get off of Netflix and Fortnite and any other video games that drain the internet. Convince them that you need to have this particular time. Make sure you have everything, be ready to go half hour before your exam where you have to log in. Sit there, you can kill 30 minutes just looking at your computer and looking at your documents. Take a series of big deep breaths, and slowly let it out, just so that you can calm down, okay? No stress, you got everything together. You've spent the last 6 weeks with us. You had fabulous teachers help you all the way through already, and you're ready to go. So let's get it going and be done with it. All right, now we're going to, what was that? Sorry. This is where you're going to check in 30 minutes before. So if anyone has any questions, they can go ahead and log into the Slido account, and we're going to start pulling your questions there because we're almost done here. All right, so the next is you're going to submit your work. And there's some key elements here, so make sure you're paying attention. If you do not click submit before the timer runs out, your response will not count. You must click submit in order for it to count. It will continue loading in the background. So maybe things are running slow on the first exam for some unknown reason. It's going to continue loading in the background while you are able to start working on your second question. Okay, just let it do that. Okay, don't shut it down, don't quit, don't restart, don't refresh, don't turn it off. Just let it do what it needs to do. Go ahead, do your second question. You're going to submit as well. Eventually, after that submission, you're going to get your AP exam is complete message, and you're good to go. You finished your exam. 2 thumbs up. However, if you never get this, your AP exam is complete, you're going to go in and request to take the makeup exam. For some reason, something must have happened, and you're going to have to give them a reason something happened that you weren't able to submit it. Okay. All right. So this is just once again the entire course, the relationships, our systematic study of our patterns and processes, how we learn to think geographically using data, spatial images, and then ultimately how we are going to take this exam. And you're going to do great. So another set of questions. I'm hoping you will have a chance to talk about these on Monday. Maybe on Tuesday that you will. You'll see why in a minute here. Describe, in this question here, describe the demographic characteristics of country A with respect to the demographic transition model. We've had that. If you don't remember what it is, you need to go look it up. You need to also go back to the video that talked about this. This is in unit 2 with population. And then describe the demographic characteristics of country B with respect to the demographic transition model. And then you're going to look at one positive impact of each country's population structure on its economic development, and then one negative impact of each country's structure on its economic development. It's a pretty straightforward question. It's a really good question. All right, so in preparation of next week, are you in preparation for next week? What is happening? Next week, we are doing 2 mock exams. So we have some released sample questions that were made available to us. The first one will be on Monday, and it will have 2 questions, a 25-minute question and a 15-minute question. And you're going to go through and answer those and a little bit other information. And then on Tuesday is a review of those. And then we're going to use 2 different questions on Wednesday with, again, a review on Thursday. And then on Friday, we have a special guest coming as well. And it's we're going to wrap it all up on Friday and send you off to do fabulous things and be absolutely wonderful, because you are prepared and you know that practice makes perfect and you are going to do awesome. So, William, can you share with me some questions that might have been posted? All right, we have 5 minutes to submit our work. Can we use any of this time to add finishing touches to your work? Yes, but be very careful, particularly if you are writing it, okay? Finishing touches, finish out the sentence, finish out the comment, yes. If you're using tech, must you the Google Doc? I'm not sure what that question is. But must you delete the Google Doc after the exam? It won't make any difference. I mean, the teachers are all going to get your answers the next day anyway. Can you clarify how the exam is scored? Well, this exam is scored from a 1 to a 5, 5 being the highest and 1 being the lowest with no credit. No, it is not on a bell curve. In the FRQ, will it ever ask for an example, or should we just provide one without it asking? I always tell my students provide an example. AP exams are scored on a points awarded system. So if you add information that is not needed, it's not going to hurt you. It just takes away your time. And that's what you have to be careful of. Could you better define social and political reasons? Well, social are going to be things like that identify with people. So race, ethnicity, gender, age, demographics, a lot of times will come into that. Political is government based, who's the government's doing things. Can I do submission demo multiple times? Well, I guess so, because if you have 4 or 5, the question was, can I do practice demo submission multiple times? All the students that are taking multiple AP exams can, so I really don't know, but it would seem like you probably can. I can't find my ID. What do I do? I explained that in the very first set of slides. You need to go to mycollegeboard.org and submit your email address and your name and ask for that. It's also, if you contact your teacher also has that in the AP classroom, through the AP classroom list, and also your AP coordinator on your campus will have that. I was wondering if College Board will monitor the microphone on my, no, the College Board is not monitoring your microphone or your camera. My dogs are loud too, you should have just heard them. When it says to compare, how will we know whether to specify similarities or differences? It'll tell you, it'll say, what is this? Compare this or that. It's going to tell you when you're comparing it, you either do it one way or the other. Most students always compare things in similarities. Differences sometimes can be a little bit more challenging, but it's one or the other. It's not compare and contrast. Compare and contrast, we require you to do both. This is just compare. Um, will they be expecting more out of us since it is online? No, no. You already are off the hook for the multiple choice questions. Is debt a political or social? Debt is a economic factor. Debt deals with money. Can you use a separate piece of tech for our notes? If you can juggle it, I'm concerned about you guys being able to juggle things. So if you use a separate piece of technology for your notes, you can try. I would practice it ahead of time. You guys have a good week here to figure out how to make things work at the last minute, or in sufficient amount of time. I'm sorry. I've heard that there's no curve. There's never a curve on AP exams. It's set against a you need to let the data matrix people deal with how things get calculated. Okay. So there's not a curve. It's not set, never has been a curve. What is the difference between nation and stateless nation? A nation is a group of people with a common ties, common ethnicities, they have something in common. A nation is a group of people. A stateless nation means that that's a people with a common ties that don't have boundaries, that don't have a sovereign boundary. If you're running short on time, can you use the submit time to finish up your FRQs? You got to be super careful with that. They're giving you 5 minutes, but if you need to hurry up and get it done, okay, but you really have to be careful, because if you don't submit in that time, it's not going to go. Do I ever receive feedback on my response or why I received the score I did? Not individually, dear precious, this is what you did. No, but your teachers are going to get your responses. So that's very new this year. So you let your teachers give you back some response. Let's see. All these running out of time questions are all the same. How can you request a makeup test? Is something I go back to the slide that I gave you the address on. You can go back to that and copy that address down if you missed something during the test. Grammar is not graded. Spelling is not graded. I don't know how many points the exam is, and I don't know how many parts it is. We don't know that until it comes out. An economic reason why refugees flee from their country, devaluation of money, property, seizure of property. This is Venezuela right now, 2 examples. You get your AP ID, I already said, from your teacher, from your AP coordinator. You can get it also off of College Board, AP Central, or AP College Board. All right. So no, you cannot see the second question while you see the first question. No, you are not required to make generalizations on the exam. There is no set number of people who get 5s. It's not done that way. All right, guys, I hope I got to most of your questions. I was running through them pretty quick. I think I did. A lot of them are repeats. And a lot of the questions that I'm seeing are things that I've already said. So if you missed it and you still have that question, go back through all of this and see, double check what it does, particularly between yesterday and today in terms of the logistics. The content questions, you can go back through the YouTube channel. They're all labeled. What are the big ideas? What are the skills? And those all cover the topics all the way through the course. I know it's easier to say what, but maybe if you look at it a little bit, you'll get a little bit more out of it and get the whole version around what something is that you're asking about. All right, I've got to go because that's the end of our story. And so y'all take care. Thanks for watching again today. Be sure to see the world around you, explore the complex relations of geography, and join us next week as we are going to take you through some mock exams so that we can ease any more anxiety that you may have. Have a great evening and a fabulous weekend. Bye, guys.